takati 80% NCDs, they are due to 4 main categories atakaisa. Takatanga kutaura nezvaanonzi cardiovascular disease, that was the first. Then the second one, ndo yatakati cancers. Then the third one, diabetes. Then the fourth one, ndo atoti respiratory conditions and affect our breathing system. So those are the 4 categories. So takatanga about cardiovascular diseases, tikataura cancers. So today, takuenda pachi third one. We are going to talk about diabetes, which is a very broad term, a very broad disease, which we need to understand, and it's among us, but it's important for us to understand it so that we can be able to manage it well. So, diabetes, it's a condition, it's a chronic condition that affects how our body processes the blood sugar in our system. So diabetes is a chronic condition which is a result from the effect of how our body processes our blood sugar. Because we know that our blood sugar is very important for the cells, for them to function well. So the way it's regulated in sugars, how they are regulated, if they are not regulated well, it will result in diabetes mellitus. So diabetes mellitus, kuna diabetes in medicine. Akati one day, but yatutaura nezvaye sugar inonzi diabetes mellitus. So we have 2 main types of diabetes mellitus. Actually, let's say 4. Let's categorize them as 4 essay, but there are 2 main types. But we have 4. We have 4 main types of diabetes mellitus. The first one, is type 1. Type 1 diabetes mellitus. Then the second one, is type 2 diabetes mellitus. Then the third one, is gestational diabetes. Gestational diabetes. Then the fourth one, is pre-diabetes. Pre-diabetes. So that we have 4 main categories and it's diabetes. Type 1, type 2, then gestational diabetes, then pre-diabetes. So first one, I'll start on the first one, the type 1 diabetes. So this is the diabetes affect the young, kind of the children and the adolescents. Usually it affects the young. In type 1 diabetes, we are saying it's an autoimmune disease. That's the most common cause here. Type 1 diabetes. Autoimmune, we are saying any organ and it body maybe in stomach, controller and produce insulin. Insulin is a hormone. Rinobatsira sugar mumuviri medu. So that insulin gadzirwa ka organ kari mudumbu medu kanonzi ka pancreas. In that pancreas mune cells arimu anoproduce insulin. So if insulin if kana tiri pa type 1 tiri kuti isusu the cells anenge ari mu pancreas anoproduce insulin, they are auto destroying. Kana chiti autoimmune tutaura kuti masoja edu emumuviri anditi tinoziva kuti masoja emumuviri anofana kufighta against infections anditi masoja ese mumuviri anofana kuti when a foreign object or a foreign antibody ikapinda mumuviri medu, they have to be produced or fight those foreign objects. But in diabetes, kana chiti autoimmune, we are saying kuti masoja edu emumuviri they are turning against our cells. Anofana kunge achitiprotecta, but ma-cells aya, immune cells ine mumwe nhambo, they will turn against, then onotanga kudestroya ma-cells anoproducer insulin. So this disease, can I read type 1? We don't really know what really triggers our antibodies to go against our own cells. So our own cells unproduce pancreas, unproduce insulin, they are destroyed. In the young, type 1 in the young, in the adolescents. So it's autoimmune because the body reactor attack those cells and produce insulin. Then if those cells are no longer there, it means insulin is produced. So can insulin is produced, it means that our sugars, they are not going to be lowered down in system then. So that's type number 1. So it usually affects the young. Then type 2, though in early age, and it's mostly affected by lifestyle change, the lifestyle that you live. So type 1, we are saying it's mostly genetic. Type 1, it usually runs in families. It's mostly determined by the genes, most of it. So type 1, you can't really do much on that one because the cells, they auto-regulate on their own. But in type 2, we are saying this comes as age progresses. This is the most common type of diabetes because of the lifestyles that you do each and every day.
Thank you. So type 2, that is the most common type of diabetes. It is because the pancreas, cells atambotaura anoproduce insulin. As you are growing older, some of them they depreciate or they start to die. The cells actually anenge asiri enough to produce the insulin inobatsira kuti sugar idzike. Saka it's a matter of time. Also in type 2, because also insulin inogona kunge iripo, but panenge paita yatinoti resistance ye-insulin yacho kuweka on my cells, and especially kuma muscle cells kana kuma fatty cells. So pakaita resistance, tot insulin is there. For it to work, inofana kunoshanda kuma muscles edu kuti batsire kuti sugar ipinde muma cells, so that ive mu bloodstream. Sugar ifana kuwanda mu bloodstream, ikawanda mu bloodstream ndo panenyaya ndo patinoti munhu ane sugar. So whenever we eat and eat, sugar ika absorba inoenda mu bloodstream, mainofamba muyame anditi ichienda kumwiri vese through our vessels, ma arteries and our veins. Haifana kugara imomo, ikagarisa imomo iri too high, ndo zvino result ku diabetes, and that's the thing that we don't want. We want kuti sugar ikapinda ikaabsorba, yopinda mu system, yoabsorba nema cells. Ma-cells ochishandisa sugar kuita zvaanenge achida kuita kana riri basa to produce energy. That's what we need. So kana tiri pa type 2, we are saying that the cells anoproduce insulin acho amashoma, saka we are not getting enough insulin. And also we might have also insulin in correct amounts, but for the insulin, for it to push the glucose from the bloodstream kuti ichiende muma cells, panenge pane inonzi resistance inenge iripo. Saka it's there, the insulin, but it can't push the sugars. That will result in type 2 diabetes because the sugars will remain in the bloodstream. So to see tichazotaura neima complications acho kuti sei tisingadi kuti sugar irambe yakakwira iri bloodstream medu. So ndo yatinoti type 2. So type 2 is the most common, ndo inouya neaging from 30 years zvichienda mberi. That's the type 2. Then inonzi gestational diabetes. Gestational ndo zvinoreva kuti is pregnancy related. Tine madzimai vamwe vanoti shuga inogona kukwira when they are pregnant only. So there's a condition like that, it's gestational. It means it's sugar, it rise when you are pregnant. So there are hormones are related and sugar idaro when you are pregnant. Usually it's gestational, when you usually after 6 weeks after the sugars will go back to normal. But it's a risk factor for you having yatinoti type 2 in your lifetime. Saka ukamboita inonzi gestational diabetes, kana uri mudzimai kana ukambonzi shuga yakakwira uine pamwiri ikadzika, you need kuzoramba uchingomonitwa, because as time goes on it might be a risk factor which you might have the sugars again as you grow older. Then inonzi pre-diabetes, tatarotine forward. So taanimwe inonzi pre-diabetes. Pre, it means kuti haisati kuestablish diabetes. As you will see, kana tigani vanongozvitaura pana kuti the way we diagnose sugar, count our blood level, tine a level yatinotaura when we test the sugars kuti kana yasvika pakati takuti diabetes, kana yasvika pakati haisati diabetes. So yatikuti pre-diabetes, we are saying kuti it's a level yainenge yasvika sugar, but we are not yet calling it diabetes according to our guidelines. So yatinoti diabetes, diagnosis of our diabetes, when we diagnose diabetes, we are saying kuti ukaitwa inonzi random blood sugar ndekuti unogona kutorwa sugar izvezvizvo at random, hauna kumbofasta, hauna kumbodiwa, chika zvakanaka. Then if we take your sugar, tikaona kuti sugar yako iri above 11.1, it means kuti sugar yako yakakwirisa. Ikainge iri above 11.1, it means munhu une sugar 11.1. Izvi ndikuzviita kuti mubate, handiti unogona kuzongopinda mupharmacy, any pharmacy, haukurambidzwi kuti ngochekwa sugar, handiti unongogona kupinda ungoti chimbonichekwa sugar yangu yakamira sei. If you see your reading iri above 11.1, it means kuti sugar iripo. So yatikuti pre-diabetes, the normal blood sugar should range from 4 to 7.8. Yatikuti random blood sugar. Ukangochekwa sugar izvozvizvi, kana iri between 4 and 7.8, that's fairly okay. Saka yatikuti pre-diabetes, we are saying kuti above 7.8 to less than 11, handiti? Tati diagnose sugar, it should be above 11.1. In normal should be 4 to 7.8. Saka in between 7.8 kusvika pa 11 up, ndo yatikuti pre-diabetes. It means kuti hatisati kuti une sugar, but zvakuda kuenda kunoita sugar. So that's a window period yakanaka yekuti if you do yatinoti lifestyle change or modifications, you see kuti you would prevent you having sugar in your life. Here yatinoti prevention is better than cure. So it's very important for us to note kuti kana sugar yako yakati kwirisei iri above 7.8, you need kunge uri pama lifestyle modifications atishataura apa, so that you won't be diagnosed of diabetes, because it's reversible. When iri pa pre-diabetes, it's reversible. So it's a window that will be given zvinokubatsira, but zvinogoneka if you check, and it can also get to check, it's difficult for you to know. So that's why we encourage you, you need to check, because if you are pre-diabetic, you might not have any symptom. Those but you might not feel anything. My signs are no show up with sugar. So it will be important for you to check. So those are the 4 types. So I'll go on to the symptoms. Sugar. My symptoms are sugar. I think I have a Number 1, increased thirst. Really excessive. Of course, panic pizza or open amazing as I'm from out of sugar because Monano but could pizza with sugar. If you are taking enough water, you are hydrating well, then still you get this increased taste. You need to check banana sugar. Then dry mouth, of course, it goes with increased taste. Then increased urination. Kangona uchinyanya kudakuita kunorasa mvura yakawanda. So it's about yakawanda, wet yakawanda, yatinoti polyuria. Poly it means many urea. Polyuria is another symptom. Yeah, sugar. More than 3 times in a night, yakawanda. Of course, you need to kuchepa kutizvakamira sei. Then extreme hunger. Sometimes you need to check sugar. Then unexplained weight loss. Weight loss is a very good sign, especially in type 1 diabetes. In the type 1, you see weight loss, though the main symptom. Then also fatigue. Fatigue is another symptom of diabetes. Then blood vision. Kusanyatsa kuona zvakanaka is another symptom. Then you can also have slow healing sores. Ukaita tumaronda, makumbo, muromo, tusingakurumidzi kuhila, tunotera nguva yakarebesa. You need to check your sugar, it's very important. Then also you can have a tingling sensation mumaoko kana mumakumbo. Kana uti numbness kungonzwa chiveve. That's another symptom that you need kuchekwa. So in a nutshell, these are the very common symptoms of diabetes. Especially kana uine a family member anenge aine sugar, we encourage you kana uine one of these symptoms, you need to have your sugar checked. It's very important. So why are we worried about diabetes? Because if we know why we should prevent this, it will enable us to but one of the importance of preventive strategies which we should do so that it will help us to prevent these complications. So I will talk about complications in diabetes. Ukange uine sugar but ikasarapka. What are the complications? What are the results if it's not controlled or if it's not managed well? So we have 2 major categories complications in diabetes. Macrovascular complications. Macro means big, and macro means big. Macrovascular. Vascular, we are saying the vessels, and it tataura papa sugar ituti yakawanda muma vessels. Do maningi mininya sugar ifana kuwanda iri mu bloodstream mako inofana unge ichipinda cells so that inoita basi. Saka ikaramba iri muma vessels, we have macrovascular complications. Macro means big, which means this affects the big vessels. And it right. So see these ones, these complications. So the first one, ndo yatinoti coronary artery disease yatakambotaura nayo inonzi heart attack. If sugar ikange iripo ikasadiagnoswa, you are at risk of getting heart attacks kana tatinoti coronary artery diseases. So that's one of the implication. If it's poorly controlled or if it's not controlled at all, usingatozivi unozongotswa kuti munhu adonha from nowhere. So it's important to note that you can have an heart attack if kana uine sugar isiriwo controlled kana kuti usingatozivi kuti une sugar. Then we also have atakataura strokes. Stroke takataura kuti zvakanangofanana handiti heart attack. Kungoti stroke inoitikira kuchi kuma brain cells. Heart attack, the blockage inoitira kuchi kuma vessels anopamba ropa kumwoyo wedu, saka ropa harizosviki zvakanaka kubrain. So it results in stroke. Ropa rikasasvika zvakanaka kumwoyo, it results in heart attack. So strokes, heart attacks. Then pane yatinoti peripheral vascular disease inoaffecta makumbo now. Peripheral vascular disease, you remember vamwe vedu zvimwe tine relatives edu vamwe vakagurwa makumbo nokuda kweshuga, ndo yatinoti peripheral vascular disease. We are saying it affects vessels anoenda kumaperipheries. Saka vessels aya akange akutadza kushaya, akange akushaya ropa rinonyatsa kufamba zvakanaka because of this complication of diabetes, it will result ropa harizosviki kugumbo zvakanaka. Ropa rikasasvika zvakanaka kugumbo, that leg or that limb would dry. So rimwe rinoita dry, dry gangrene, because no longer have any supply of blood. Some it can become dry. Then the other one it can be wet. Shaya ropa, then you get an infection. That one is an emergency one. Do you have to wet gangrene? If it's wet, it means there's an infection. So that one, do you know zonyanya could result in amputation? It's an emergency. You have to be amputated because that infection will continue to come up. So peripheral vascular disease is another complication. If sugar is all controlled, you get ulcers, you get ronda, you get even diabetic foot. When your foot have ulcers, the infection which takes time to heal and sometimes will result in amputation. So these are the three main macrovascular complications of sugar. Then micro, macro, and macro means big. Micro, we are now saying these are small vessels. So these ones, they affect small vessels. So the first one, diabetic nephropathy. Nephropathy, takambotara vanga vari pana pa last week. Takambotara the commonest tumor in children. Tikati the commonest tumor inonzi chi? Takati chi commonest cancer muvana takati chi? Pana uchiriyo. Takata affect which organ? The kidney, did it? Takata affect the kidney, did it? Takata affect the kidney. Nephron, the nephrons, or the attack the nephroblastoma, nephron. So diabetic nephropathy, we are saying this affect the kidney. So the kidney in it small vessels to batsira to filter our those dead those waste products in our body, and the kidney's function is to remove one of the functions they could remove those waste products away from our body. So there are small vessels in those kidneys. So sugar can affect those small vessels. It will result in kidney failure. So most common complication in sugar is diabetic nephropathy, you result in kidney damage. And you see that most of my cases, vanhu vanenge vari pamadialysis vakuda machine kuti vange vachibatsirizwa kusuka itsvo. It most likely diabetes is one of the burdens inowanzokonzeresa that complication. So the kidneys are the number one complication yatinoti micro inoaffecta those small vessels. Then tine yatinoti retinopathy. Retinopathy ndo iyayaye yeziso anditi. I think last week futi takataura kuti one of the cancers inoaffecta vana inonzi retinoblastoma. It affects the eye, the part of the eye it is sensitive to light, inonzi the retina. So there are small vessels in that layer of the eye. So in diabetic retinopathy, we are saying those small vessels, they are affected. If they are affected, it will result in decreased vision and also in blindness. Those are, I'm sure, some of us or some of our relatives, they have problems by eyesight, and some of them they are blind because of diabetes. The unfortunate thing is these microvascular complications, they are not irreversible. Once they happen, you can't really reverse. Once your kidney, you can get out of the machine, we can't, as of now, God hasn't yet revealed to any man how can you bring back other than kidney transplant, of course, of which in our settings, kidney transplant, it's a tall order. So these microvascular complications, most of them they are not reversible. So it's a rather sad thing. So tataura kuti retinopathy, neuropathy, nephropathy. Then the third one, ndo yata inonzi neuropathy. Ino affect my nerves, the neural system. That's the other complication here, diabetes. Inonzi neuropathy. Kana tichiti neuropathy, we are saying kuti my nerves, tine ma nerves anobva kuspinal cord anobatsira kuti the information iri kubrain inge ichisvika, nditi tambo dziya dzinofambisa moto musystem yedu. Mwari vakatisika in an amazing way, handiti? So those small arteries, or those small nerves rather, they also need blood. So if the vessels that affect, that supplies those neurons, akasaita ropa rakakunyatsa ukwana, they will not function well. And also there is a fact yekuti kana sugar yakawandisa, it's also deposited in my nerves here. Ika deposit kwa nerves here, the nerves will not function well. Dopa unenge wakuzonzwa munhu akutsanangura those symptoms atambotaura numbness, ekuti unonzwa chiveve, tingling sensation, mumaoko, mumakumbo. So ndo yatinoti neuropathy. So tati isusu pama microvascular complications tine kidney, ma nerves, they need the retina. Saka tuti ma kidneys, ma nerves, ne retina. Saka you see kuti sugar, it can cause ma symptoms, almost any symptom in you. Ika affect ma nerves anenge achi batsira digestion yako. You see kuti you have ma digestive issues. My nerves akanga affect anobatsira kuti uite weight zvakanaka, you have my problems weight zvakare. So it's a multi-system disorder. So you can have any complication in diabetes. So anything that you feel you are not sure of, you need to be checked. Go check wana sugar zvakanakisa. It will help to prevent all these complications. So early diagnosis is very important, because once waonekwa kunzi sugar iripo, treatment is there. That's the good thing. Diabetes can be treated. And so let's talk about treatment now. totanga pa prevention. How would you prevent yourself from having diabetes? Prevention, especially pa pre-diabetic, patata ora pa tima sugars kana sata pa 7.8 to 11. You need lifestyle modifications. I think this was takambo shitaura. I think zvakada kungofanana in terms of diet. Panyaya diet is a very fundamental aspect, especially panyaya ye diabetes, because we want kuti munhu areduce especially carbohydrates, but isusu in our settings we see kuti our staple foods do carbohydrates acho. Our staple food carbohydrates. So but in diabetes we have to reduce carbohydrates, and when we take carbohydrates acho pane atinoti simple sugars or simple carbohydrates anoita kuti once watongodya sugar inobva yatokwira ipapo yobva spike yobva yakwira. We don't want those foods, because ikakwirisa maningi iyo insulin yacho mauri iri shoma yekuti idzikise sugar yacho, it stays in there yakawanda. Sugar inoramba iri system for a longer time isati yadzika, so it brings complications higher. So we encourage, but usually we want to focus on complex carbohydrates, wheat, whole grain, pachingwa. Usually pachingwa, we encourage you brown. Let's go with brown. The white one, though in it's not a very high glycemic index. Once the sugars will spike high, and the body also insulin it becomes tricky. So we usually encourage whole grain. Then kana research, of course, munga sometimes but that would be the best. That would be the best. Especially can want to diagnose what sugar at all. It's very important. But I think it's one area that we need. That's the fact. That brown salsa that we don't want. It doesn't taste. It's really healthier than our conventional white salsa. Then my proteins also, we want lean proteins, poultry, fish, then my plant proteins like beans. We need to move away from red meat. It also increases my chances of my fats and it also hinders insulin production. Insulin resistance. You see it will be also hindered by fats again. So diet is very important. And by diet, we want small, frequent feeds. Small, frequent feeds, so that we will encourage you. Can someone do this? Doka sadza katino kurudzira aka kakadai aka. Vana baba. But I'm scout vana baba. Even madzimai handisi. Mwedzi wakati one day I think it's a tall order, but that's the standard. That's what we encourage. Small, frequent feeds. It helps pakuti once kakapinda system kakadigested kwa ikako akapima sugars akawanda zvokuti kana une insulin yakati shomekeiwo, it can easily balance balanced your sugars dzoramba dziri pamalevels akanaka than kurozi gomo rakadai rikazodigeswa iroro maybe rinoda 5 hours kuti ridigeswe richipaikisa masugars oramba akakwira kusvika uko paanozopera after 6 hours insulin of course inenge yasoproducwa kudhara zvimwe inenge yasotodzika kudhara pancreas yasoti munhu asodzika kudhara saka there is no need but apa still sadza riya richiri kungopamba the sugars in your body. So you see kuti masugars anoramba akangokwira and masugars akaramba akakwira sugar you would be at risk. So we don't encourage you kuti munge muchitora makomo esanza. It helps. So small frequent feeds. Something small after 4 hours you take something. After another 4 hours, you take something very small. It helps you, especially kanazo maneru ndoma mwaninya. I think we need to change papa. Vamwe atijiki makseni, atijiki maskati maneru. Tozoti takuona pana. I have been hungry so much because maneru now, except maybe kana uchishanda ako maneru acho. But most of us tingeta karara, did. In the canal karara, you are not carbohydrates. They are there to they are energy giving. They just give energy. So if they are not, you are not using any energy. Wakatorara, that energy, it's not going anywhere. What the body, what it does, once carbohydrates are karambare high, and the body has a low energy uptake, those carbohydrates will be converted to end up fats. And you become big again. If you become obese, wakura, waku underweight, overweight, here food, it's another risk factor. You increase the insulin sensitivity to my cells. You know, reduce when you have obesity. Saka waku konzeresa fukuti sugar irambe iri high because now the insulin is sensitive to push the sugars inside your cells. So it's very important, especially manero. Yes, unogona uchakakozi mukonde makseni, maskati zviri nani. Because unenge uchishanda senge vaya vanoita manual works ekuti you need really energy. If you eat ako zvakati pfurikidze, it's much better makseni or maskati. Then you can burn that energy. Then manero now, make sure at least if you take small fiber, haubhofiri muhope kana vadya kasadza kakadai hakuna zvakadai so that hatispikisi masugars edu manheru because akaspika manheru if they continue rising up those zvinenge zvichitokonzeresa zvichitodamaja mavessels edu. So diet is very important on diabetes. Then regular physical activity, exercise. I think this one is self-explanatory. As you burn more energy, you are enabling my sugars are adding. So exercise is very important. Then weight management is very important. Obesity is a risk factor in diabetes. If you are obese, you are at risk factor of getting diabetes. So managing your weight well is very important. So your body mass index is very important. You need to know it. You need to know this. Per weight your target loss of weight should be 5 to 10%. Ukatargeta kuluza weight yako ni 5 to 10%. That's a very good target. Vamwedu vamwe tiri kuma 100, vamwe tuma 90, vamwe hazvichagoneki because calculator body mass index yevazhinji vedu weight dzedu dzinofanira kunge dziri kuma 55 to 70 somewhere there. Tikada kunyatsa calculate our body mass index, but it's no longer possible some of us. So if you just target with weight yawinayo ukaona 5% yeweight yandinayo ichi, then target that could reduce that weight. You have benefits are more for manager sugar, even for manager BP. Then that's very important because then also you need to monitor my blood sugars very regular. Kana usina sugar, we encourage you to check sugar once a year. Once a year, you need to have a blood sugar. But in a family member, and a sugar, it's very important to monitor very, very regular. Then, when you sugar, we encourage you, Panama checks at Noita, and check what is it well controlled. Panama sugar, not like glycosylated hemoglobin. Check a sugar on the average for the past 3 months. It really helps with all the sugar. Is it well controlled? So every year and day you need to have that test for you to know, am I doing well on the medications? Out time but I would say monitoring my drugs would also tower so but diet ndo pakakosha. I would like to emphasize but diet ndo pakakosha. We need to reduce my sugary drinks, especially my sugary drinks, my fizz and my carbohydrates. We need to limit those ones. Then my processed foods, my French fries, my fats, also need to reduce. My cereals, my added sugars, we need to reduce those ones. So I think in a nutshell, time I think it's up. Then on medications, it's very important to stick on our medication. Medication it's very important to stick on medication. Even you don't stop medication because some of us know right, so I will drop. But it's not advisable if any health expert. But there is one thing that I also need to just mention. Too much sugar, but also in the management of diabetes, kana utori pamushonga pane a major risk yekuti inogona kuderera zvakanyanyisa less than 4. When it's less than 4, that's a more danger than kukwira kwayo. Kudzika kwe-BP kwe-sugar, I mean, kuwa kuma 2 kuma 1 kuri more dangerous nekuwa 20 nokuwa 30 kwayo. In the fact that the brain, it only uses glucose for it to function. So ukastava your brain for more than 10 minutes is in a glucose, you are gone. And it's easily treated. So hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia is low blood sugar. If it's too low, it's too dangerous. So you need to identify the symptoms, especially kanaotori pamushonga. When you see yourself wakudedera, wakusweta, too much hunger, dizziness, fast breathing, fatigue yakanyanyisa, confusion, blood vision, usawoni zvakanaka, one is slurred speech, sometimes wamanotokwina, or loss of consciousness, unotogonongofenda from nowhere. Kana uine munhu ane sugar kana adaro, please, you need to give that person immediately sugar. That's the only time yatinongo advisor kuti munhu ane sugar should take sugar. Kana aine masymptoms atataura, meaning kuti sugar inenge yanyanya kudzikisa. Saka you have to take immediately something zvinoita kuti sugar yedu idzoke. So ndo patinoti munhu ngaahwire kasweet. Kana kuti kana aite conscious, tinoisa sugar pasi perurimi. Anditi, please, hatisi sugar mukanwa, just ungoisa mukanwa. Ukaisa mukanwa munhu akafenda, unozotouraya munhu because inobva yapinda kuhuro, yobva yapinda mutrachea, watovhara here. Because sometimes vamwe ndo zvavanoita, vanopa porridge munhu ari unconscious. Kana munhu afendapo, you don't put porridge. Wakutovhara, wakutoita inonzi asphyxia. We have seen many relatives ndo zvatinoita tiri mumamusha umu. Katimkurukirika porridge, my muscles anocontrola kuti chikafu chiende esophagus anenge alax. Munhu yeye wakungoisa wakuta porridge origin trachea. That's a death sentence. So usually you raise the tongue, then you put sugar under the tongue. That's what we encourage you. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I think you have already answered my request on the dietitian, because you spelled it out. And I think if I adhere to that, I think it will be good with me and the rest. Now, you have reminded me of my school days. While we were at school, I was a long-distance runner and a cross-country athlete and a short-distance runner. So the school screened us for such activities, and then we were given rations of sugar, and we were ordered to make sure that each day we would take some teaspoons full of sugar. And what they were telling us, they were saying, this is for energy, so that you can run. And definitely they actually did so, because cross-country, they would beg people along the places where we were running. So we would run, and they would make sure that we have passed by them, so that they would report. Now, my question therefore is that if definitely some people took a lot of sugar in order to invigorate what the muscles and did not actually do the activities, couldn't it be a danger to them, or what would be a danger to them? That's one question. The other is that what you have said in terms of weight, I made a slight research. Most of the people prior to independence, or before independence, were having well-sized bodies. But after independence in this country, with the influx of foreign foods, which definitely saw many, if I would actually say, many women being very hefty than they were previously. And we also saw men also following that. Could that have been triggered much by that? Because some of it, you could even see they are trying to say, if we can at least get to a pharmacy where we could get tablets that will reduce our weight. Because previously we used to hear of that the pharmacies would give tablets that would at least reduce your weight. Can you clarify that?
Thank you so much. On those ones, pane vaidyirawo shuga vasingazo exercise,
yes,
you be at risk. But the diabetes is not a one-day event or a month event. If you are just taking sugar just for a month, then it will just pop up there. It's a matter of a long period of time. So sometimes we don't really, there is no real specific time. It depends with your body, how it handles your sugars. So this is subjective sometimes. They have a propensity to saka akatongotora asi kutomboita any exercise, you see maybe in a month's time after developing symptoms of diabetes. So it depends on the person and also on the time achitora those sugars, personal exercise. So but it's a risk factor definitely. If you are not doing something, then you are taking too much of the carbohydrates, it's a risk factor. Then on weight, yeah, of course, that's a very good observation. The Western diets that we are taking now, it has been resulting to, we are seeing now obesity, it has increased because of this westernization. And also GMOs, and now our foods, they are now GMO based, some of them, and sometimes we don't know when we consume it. 2018, why is it no under 18? Didn't know why under 18 is ngadyi for kanaka. But these are the issues. Sometimes, yeah, there are some of these things which are now put in those things that we are now eating, which is now propensing to power and obesity. But we don't usually encourage use of drugs to reduce weight. Because drugs, they are there just to reduce the appetite. You are just reducing the appetite. They are not burning the fat. They are just reducing you not to take food too much. So the side effects now, do I concern. So as for me, usually if you come to me, if I consult you, I don't encourage you to take those tablets. I would say it's better for you to do it the natural way. Let's have weight reduction through exercise and discipline on eating. Discipline yourself. Apana no bofaba. Ukajika a little thing. Apana, because do you know our liver can store food yet the glycogen that can go even up to 12 to 15 hours. You can live. So it's about discipline. Thank you so much.
Tinotenda Mwari tirwere chiremba maoko bati zvakanaka tadzidziswa hande to apply zvakadzidza especially panyaya sadza mburi wazvizwa here ngaritsikire tasi titsikise sadza Mwari ngavakudzwa adikana tibatanidze maoko edu tichitenda Mwari vaita zvedu chiremba information yakadai unobhadhara mari yakawanda but kuno kuti tiri kuiwana pasina mbhadhara. We are being conscientized, awareness yetiri kupuwa ngatirarame zvakanaka. Toda kusimuka netsoka dzedu adikana tisvike patinoimbirwa neve present worship.